The morning started like any other Tuesday in March. I remember the rain hitting my office window as I reviewed the final specifications for the Morrison Healthcare project, a $2.3 million contract that Henderson and Associates had been chasing for 8 months. As the lead architect on the proposal, I'd spent countless late nights perfecting every detail of the cloud infrastructure design. The system would handle patient data for over 40 hospitals across the Pacific Northwest, and frankly, it was some of my best work. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. I smiled, looking at the ultrasound photo taped to my monitor. We'd already submitted all my paperwork for 12 weeks of parental leave. Washington State's Family and Medical Leave Act guaranteed it, and Henderson and Associates employee handbook explicitly supported it. I'd even trained my junior developer, Marcus Chen, to handle the day-to-day maintenance while I was gone. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was designing systems to protect sensitive family information while preparing to start my own family. Sarah and I had talked extensively about those first few months. She was a pediatric nurse at Seattle Children's Hospital, and we both understood how crucial those early bonding weeks would be. Unlike her job, which had clear maternity leave policies that everyone respected, the tech world still felt like uncharted territory for fathers wanting to be present. Around 10 that morning, my direct supervisor, Janet Morrison, no relation to the healthcare client, knocked on my office door. Janet had always been supportive of my work, often praising my attention to detail and ability to translate complex technical requirements into practical solutions. She'd been with Henderson and Associates for 12 years and had seen the company grow from a small consultancy to a regional powerhouse. "Hey, David, got a minute?" she asked, but something in her tone felt off. Usually, Janet was direct and energetic. Today, she seemed uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact. "Sure, what's up? Please tell me the Morrison healthcare team didn't find another edge case in the security protocols." She closed the door behind her and sat across from my desk. "Actually, it's not about Morrison Healthcare. I need to talk to you about your upcoming leave." I felt my stomach tighten. "Is there a problem with the documentation? I submitted everything through HR 6 weeks ago." Janet shifted in her chair. "The documentation is fine. It's just, the timing is really challenging for us. The Morrison project is entering its critical phase, and honestly, you're the only one who fully understands the architecture. Marcus is bright, but he doesn't have your experience with healthcare compliance requirements. We've been preparing for this transition for months," I reminded her. "I've documented everything, created detailed handover notes, and Marcus has been shadowing me on every major decision. Plus, I'll be available for genuine emergencies." I know, and normally that would be sufficient. But there's something else." She paused, and I could see her wrestling with whatever she needed to say next. "The partners have been discussing the long-term implications of these extended leave policies. They're concerned about setting precedents that could impact project continuity." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Precedents? Janet, this is legally protected leave. The state law is crystal clear." "I understand that, David. But the partners are looking at this from a business perspective. They're worried about client confidence if key personnel are unavailable during critical phases." I stood up, pacing to the window. The rain had intensified, and I could see people hurrying along the sidewalks below. Umbrellas tilted against the wind. "So what are you saying exactly?" "They want to restructure your role. Move you to a consulting position where you'd work on smaller projects that don't require the same level of continuous involvement." The euphemism was transparent. Consulting position meant reduced responsibilities, reduced pay, and reduced job security. It was corporate speak pushing me toward the exit. "And if I refuse the restructuring," Janet looked down at her hands, "they've made it clear that they need someone who can commit to being present for the full project lifecycle. Someone without family obligations." David, that's not how they phrased it. But that's what they mean. I returned to my desk, pulling out the employee handbook I'd referenced when planning my leave. Page 47 explicitly states that Henderson and Associates supports work-life balance and complies with all federal and state family leave requirements. "I'm just the messenger here," Janet said quietly. The decision comes from the executive committee. The executive committee consisted of 3 men, all in their 50s or 60s, all from a generation where fathers typically didn't take extended time off for newborn. Richard Henderson, the founder, often bragged about working through his children's births, as if missing those moments was a badge of honor rather than a regret. "What's the timeline for this decision?" I asked. "They want an answer by Friday." Three days. To choose between my legal right to bond with my newborn child and my career at a company where I'd invested 4 years of my life. That evening, I sat in our nursery, the room Sarah and I had spent weekends painting a soft yellow, assembling furniture, and arranging tiny clothes that seemed impossibly small. Sarah was on the couch, reading a parenting book, occasionally shifting to find a comfortable position. "How was work?" she asked without looking up. I told her everything. About Janet's visit, the restructuring offer, the ultimatum disguised as a choice. Sarah listened without interrupting, her expression growing more serious with each detail. "They can't do this," she said finally. It's discrimination. They're not explicitly saying I can't take leave. They're just making it clear that taking leave will derail my career. Which amounts to the same thing." Sarah closed her book and looked at me directly. "What do you want to?" It was a question I'd been asking myself all afternoon. Part of me wanted to fight, to document everything, and file complaints with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. But another part of me was exhausted by the idea of battling my employer, while trying to be present for our child's first months. "I keep thinking about what kind of father I want to be," I said. "Do I want to be someone who chooses work over family because it's easy? Or do I want to be someone who stands up for what's right, even when it's difficult? And what kind of company do you want to work for?" Sarah added. "One that pays lip service to family values, while punishing employees who actually try to live them." We talked until nearly midnight, weighing options, considering consequences. Sarah made it clear that whatever I decided, she'd support. Her own experience in healthcare had shown her the importance of institutional change, how individual choices could set precedents that affected countless others. The next morning, I arrived at the office early and spent an hour reviewing the Morrison Healthcare project file. Every specification, every security protocol, every integration point. I knew this system better than anyone else at Henderson and Associates. The project represented months of collaborative work between our team and Morrison's IT department, and I genuinely believed it would set new standards for healthcare data management. Around 9, I received an email from Richard Henderson himself requesting a meeting at 11. The message was brief and formal, lacking his usual casual tone. When I arrived at his corner office, Janet was already there, along with Patricia Williams, the head of human resources. Henderson gestured for me to sit, then got straight to the point. "David, Janet has filled me in on your situation. I want you to know that we value your contributions to this company, and we're trying to find a solution that works for everyone. I appreciate that, Mr. Henderson, but I should clarify that this isn't really a situation that needs solving. I'm exercising my legal right to parental leave, something the company handbook explicitly supports." Patricia leaned forward. "David, while we absolutely comply with all legal requirements, we also have to consider the practical implications for our clients and projects. The practical implications were considered months ago when I submitted my leave request and we developed a transition plan." Henderson clasped his hands on his desk. "The Morrison Healthcare project is more complex than we initially anticipated. Their compliance requirements are extremely strict, and frankly, you're the only team member with the specific expertise they're demanding. Marcus Chen has been working closely with me on healthcare compliance for over a year. He's fully capable of handling the technical aspect, but he doesn't have your track record," Henderson replied. "Morrison specifically requested you as the lead architect because of your previous work with Pacific Medical Group." I realized what was happening. They were using the client's preference as justification for their own discriminatory practices. "Are you saying that Morrison Healthcare has specifically stated they won't work with Marcus as the lead?" The silence that followed was telling. Patricia finally spoke. "They haven't explicitly said that, but given the project's complexity and timeline, We believe it's in everyone's best interest to maintain continuity. Everyone except my family. Henderson's expression hardened slightly. David, I built this company from nothing. I worked 80-hour weeks, missed family dinners, skipped vacations. That's what it takes to build something meaningful. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. And is that the culture you want to perpetuate? One where employees have to choose between career advancement and being present for their children? I'm saying that in a competitive industry. Dedication often requires sacrifice. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes. But the outcome was predetermined. They offered me the consulting position again, emphasizing that it would provide flexibility while allowing the company to serve clients effectively. When I declined, Henderson asked me to reconsider over the next 2 days. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I called in sick and drove to Lincoln Park. I needed space to think, away from office politics and corporate pressure. The park was nearly empty on a Wednesday afternoon, just a few joggers and dog walkers enjoying the brief break in Seattle's typical spring rain. Sitting on a bench, overlooking Puget Sound, I thought about the conversation I'd had with my father when Sarah and I first got married. He'd worked for Boeing for 32 years, rarely missing a day, always putting the company's needs first. On his retirement day, he told me his biggest regret wasn't the overtime or the business trips, it was the assumption that work would always be there, while family moments were somehow less important. The projects I thought were so critical, he'd said, most of them were forgotten within a year. But the moments I missed with you and your mother, those are gone forever. I pulled out my phone and called Sarah. How would you feel about me starting my own company? Are you serious? Dead serious. I've been thinking about it for months, actually. There are dozens of healthcare organizations that need better data management solutions, but they can't afford the premium prices that big consultancies charge. David, you're about to be unemployed with a newborn on the way. Is this really the time to take on that kind of risk? Maybe it's exactly the time. I have severance coming, unemployment benefits, and 4 years of connections in the healthcare IT space. Plus, I wouldn't have to choose between being a good father and building a meaningful career. We talked for another hour, Sarah asking practical questions about funding, clients, and timeline. By the end of the conversation, what had started as a desperate idea began to feel like a genuine opportunity. That evening, I opened my laptop and started researching the process of forming a software consultancy in Washington state. I looked up business licenses, tax requirements, and liability insurance. I also began drafting a list of potential clients, smaller healthcare organizations that Henderson and Associates typically overlooked because their projects weren't large enough to be profitable. The next morning, I requested a meeting with Henderson to give him my final answer. When I walked into his office, he seemed genuinely surprised by my decision. You're turning down the consulting position? I am, and I'll be submitting my resignation, effective at the end of the week. Henderson leaned back in his chair. David, I think you're making a mistake. The healthcare IT market is extremely competitive, and most small consultancies fail within the first year. That may be true, but I'd rather fail trying to build something meaningful than succeed by compromising my value. Patricia handled the administrative details of my departure, including the terms of my severance package. Henderson and Associates had a standard non-compete clause that prevented employees from working with clients for 12 months after leaving. However, it didn't prevent me from working with organizations that weren't current clients. On my final day, Marcus Chen stopped by my office as I was packing up my personal items. I heard about what happened, he said quietly. For what it's worth, I think they're making a huge mistake. Thanks, Marcus. You're going to do great on the Morrison project. Don't let them intimidate you into thinking you're not ready. What are you going to do next? I handed him a business card I'd printed that morning. Health Tech Solution. I'm starting my own consultancy, focusing on mid-size healthcare organizations. Marcus studied the card. That's exactly what the industry needs. Most of the good solutions are priced out of reach for smaller hospitals and clinics. That's the plan. If you ever get tired of corporate politics, give me a call. As I carried my box of belongings to the parking garage, I felt a mixture of anxiety and excitement that I hadn't experienced in years. For the first time since college, I was stepping into complete uncertainty, but I was also stepping toward the possibility of building something entirely my own. That weekend, Sarah went into labor. Our daughter Emma was born on a sunny Saturday morning, weighing 7 pounds and 3 ounces. As I held her for the first time, skin to skin in the hospital room, I knew I'd made the right choice. I was present for every moment: the first cry, the first feeding, the first night at home. During those early weeks, while Emma slept and Sarah recovered, I worked on building health tech solutions. I reached out to former contacts, researched potential clients, and refined my service offering. I also spent hours each day just being present, changing diapers, walking Emma around the house when she was fussy, learning the rhythms of new parenthood. The contrast with my former colleagues was stark. Marcus called one evening to tell me about the Morrison Healthcare Project's problem. Without my detailed knowledge of the client's specific requirements, the timeline had slipped by 6 weeks. Henderson and Associates was scrambling to manage the relationship, and Morrison was expressing frustration with the lack of continuity. "They keep asking for you specifically, Marcus." Henderson finally had to admit that you'd left the company. 3 months after Emma's birth, I landed my first major client, Cascade Medical Center, a 2,000-bed hospital in Spokane that needed a complete overhaul of their patient data system. The project was smaller than what I'd handled at Henderson and Associates, but it was entirely mine. I could design the solution exactly as I envisioned it, without committee approvals or corporate compromise. More importantly, I could work from home 3 days a week, taking breaks to feed Emma or help Sarah with errands. I was building a business and being the father I wanted to be, without having to choose between them. The Cascade project became a proof of concept for everything I believed about healthcare IT. Instead of implementing an expensive, over-engineered system, I created a streamlined solution that addressed their specific needs while remaining scalable for future growth. The total cost was 60% less than what a large consultancy would have charged, and the implementation timeline was half as long. Word spread quickly through the healthcare community in Eastern Washington. Within 6 months, I had 3 more clients and was considering hiring my first employee. The business was growing faster than I'd anticipated, and I was earning more than my salary at Henderson and Associates while working fewer hours. But the real test came almost exactly 1 year after I'd left Henderson and Associates. Patricia Williams called me on a Tuesday morning, her voice carefully professional. "David, I hope you're doing well. I'm calling because we have a situation, and frankly, we could use your help." I was feeding Emma lunch, watching her attempt to grab pieces of banana with her tiny fingers. "What kind of situation?" "Morrison Healthcare is considering terminating their contract with us. They've had ongoing issues with the system implementation, and they're looking for alternatives." I felt a surge of satisfaction, though I tried to keep it out of my voice. "That's unfortunate. What does this have to do with me?" "They specifically asked if you were available for consultation. Apparently they were impressed with your initial design work and feel that the current team hasn't been able to execute your vision." Emma dropped a piece of banana and clapped her hands, delighted by the sound it made hitting her high chair tray. I wiped her hands with a cloth while considering my response. "Patricia, you're aware that I'm running my own consultancy now?" "Yes, we know, and we're hoping we might be able to work out some kind of partnership arrangement." The irony was perfect. The same company that had forced me to choose between my family and my career was now asking me to save their biggest client relationship. The client I'd helped win through months of detailed proposal work was specifically requesting the expertise they deemed expendable. "I appreciate the call, but I don't think that would be appropriate. However, Morrison Healthcare is welcome to contact me directly if they're interested in discussing their options." There was a long pause. "David, I understand there might be some hard feelings about how things ended, but this is a significant opportunity for both of us. The opportunity would have been letting me take my parental leave and return to finish the project I'd designed. That ship has sailed." After hanging up, I called Morrison Healthcare's IT director, Jennifer Walsh, whom I'd worked with during the initial proposal phase. She was direct about their frustrations with Henderson and Associates, and their interest in exploring alternatives. Honestly, David, the system they've implemented is about 70% of what you originally proposed. The security protocols are simplified, the integration capabilities are limited, and the user interface is nowhere near as intuitive as your mock-up. What would it take to get it to where it needs to be? At this point, complete redesign, we're looking at either starting over with a new vendor or terminating the project entirely. I scheduled a meeting with Jennifer and her team for the following week. In preparation, I reviewed all my original notes and designs for the Morrison project, materials I'd retained, because they represented months of my own research and analysis, independent of Henderson and Associates' proprietary information. The meeting went better than I'd hoped. Morrison's team was impressed with my understanding of their specific requirements and frustrated by the communication gaps they'd experienced with Henderson and Associates. More importantly, they were intrigued by my approach to healthcare IT, streamlined, cost-effective solutions that prioritized user experience and data security. What would your timeline look like for a complete system redesign? Jennifer asked. 6 months for full implementation, including training and transition. 3 months less than your current contract with Henderson and Associates. And cost? I'd spent hours preparing this estimate, accounting for every aspect of the project while maintaining my commitment to fair pricing. $1.8 million. That includes everything: design, development, implementation, training, and 6 months of post-launch support. Jennifer exchanged glances with her colleague. Henderson and Associates' revised quote for completing their troubled implementation was $2.1 million, with no guarantee of addressing Morrison's fundamental concerns. We'd like to propose this to our board next week. Can you provide a detailed proposal? I spent the following weekend crafting the most comprehensive proposal I'd ever written. Emma played in her bouncy seat beside my desk, occasionally demanding attention that provided welcome breaks from technical specifications. Sarah reviewed the business terms, drawing on her experience with hospital administration to ensure I'd addressed all the practical considerations. The proposal wasn't just about technical capabilities, it was about partnership. I emphasized my commitment to understanding Morrison's unique needs, my track record of delivering healthcare IT solutions, and my philosophy of building systems that enhanced rather than complicated clinical workflows. 2 weeks later, Jennifer called with Morrison Healthcare's decision. They were terminating their contract with Henderson and Associates and awarding the project to Health Tech Solutions. The contract was worth $1.8 million, the largest single project in my company's short history. More importantly, it represented validation of everything I'd believed about healthcare IT and small business agility. Morrison hadn't just chosen my technical expertise, they'd chosen my approach to client relationships and problem solving. Richard Henderson called me personally the day after Morrison announced their decision. David, I want you to know there are no hard feelings on our end. Business is business. I appreciate that, Mr. Henderson. I also want you to know that what you've built is impressive. Not many people could have pulled off what you've accomplished in just over a year. Thank you. If you ever decide you want to come back to a larger organization, Henderson and Associates would be interested in discussing acquisition opportunity. I looked across my home office at Emma, who was napping in her crib near the window. Sarah was at the hospital, but she'd be home in time for dinner, and we'd spend the evening together as a family. I appreciate the offer, but I'm exactly where I want to be. After hanging up, I realized that the conversation represented more than just a business transaction. It was proof that choosing family over corporate expectations hadn't derailed my career. It had launched something better. I was building a company that aligned with my values, serving clients who appreciated my approach, and being present for my daughter's childhood. The Morrison Healthcare Project would become the foundation for Health Tech Solutions growth, leading to dozens of similar contracts with healthcare organizations across the Pacific Northwest. But more than that, it proved that sometimes the biggest professional risks can lead to the most meaningful rewards. As I watched Emma sleep, I thought about the story I'd someday tell her about the choice I'd made before she was born. It wouldn't be a story about corporate success or climbing ladders. It would be a story about defining success on your own terms, about the courage to bet on yourself, and about the unexpected ways that doing the right thing can lead to outcomes better than anything you'd originally planned. The Morrison Healthcare contract signing happened on a rainy Thursday morning in November, Almost 18 months after Emma's birth, I drove to their corporate headquarters in Bellevue, the same building where I'd first presented my original design concepts as a Henderson and Associates employee. The difference was striking. Instead of arriving as part of a 5-person team with branded presentation folders and corporate talking points, I walked in alone with a laptop bag and a single contract folder. Jennifer Walsh met me in the lobby, and we took the elevator to the executive conference room on the 14th floor. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the Seattle skyline across Lake Washington, the Space Needle barely visible through the morning fog. Morrison's board of directors was already assembled. 7 people representing different aspects of their healthcare network. Patricia Hawkins, Morrison's chief medical officer, had been skeptical of the original Henderson and Associates proposal, questioning whether the proposed system would actually improve patient care or simply add another layer of digital complexity. She'd been particularly critical of the user interface designs, pointing out that most healthcare IT systems seemed designed by people who'd never actually worked in a clinical environment. "Mr. Brennan," she said as I set up my laptop, "I have to admit, your revised approach addresses every concern I raised during the original presentations. The workflow integration you've proposed actually makes sense from a physician's perspective." Board Chair Michael Torres nodded in agreement. "The cost savings alone justify this decision, but what impressed us most was your willingness to spend time shadowing our clinical staff. When was the last time a technology consultant asked to observe actual patient interaction?" I'd spent 2 full days at Morrison's flagship hospital, watching nurses navigate between different computer systems, observing how physicians accessed patient records during rounds, and timing how long various tasks took using their current technology. The experience had been revelatory. Most healthcare IT implementations failed because designers never witnessed the reality of clinical workflows. "Healthcare technology should be invisible to providers," I replied. "If doctors and nurses are thinking about the computer system instead of the patient, the system has failed." The contract signing itself took less than 10 minutes, but the implications were enormous. Morrison Healthcare operated 12 hospitals and 37 clinics across Washington and Oregon, serving over 800,000 patients annually. Their endorsement would open doors throughout the Pacific Northwest healthcare community. More immediately, the contract meant I needed to hire employees. Health Tech Solutions had grown from a 1-person operation to a team of 6 contractors, but the Morrison project required full-time staff with security clearances and healthcare industry experience. I'd already identified 3 potential hires: Marcus Chin, who'd finally grown frustrated with Henderson and Associates politics; Lisa Rodriguez, a user experience designer who specialized in medical software; and James Thompson, a database architect who'd previously worked with Epic Systems. The hiring process presented challenges I'd never faced as an employee. Beyond salary negotiations and benefit packages, I needed to establish company culture, define career advancement paths, and create the kind of workplace environment that would attract top talent. I wanted Health Tech Solutions to be everything Henderson and Associates wasn't: flexible, family-friendly, and focused on meaningful work rather than billable hours. Marcus was the first to join officially, leaving Henderson and Associates in December with a month's notice. His exit interview became the talk of the Seattle tech community when he cited incompatible values regarding work-life balance as his primary reason for leaving. Within a week, I received calls from 4 other Henderson and Associates employees asking about opportunities at Health Tech Solutions. "Word is getting around that you're building something special," Marcus told me during his first week. "People are tired of pretending that missing their kids' bedtimes is somehow noble." We established our first official office in a converted warehouse in Georgetown, a neighborhood south of downtown Seattle that was becoming popular with creative businesses and tech startups. The space was nothing like the polished corporate environment at Henderson and Associates: exposed brick walls, concrete floors, and large windows that let in natural light. We furnished it with standing desks, comfortable seating areas, and a kitchen where the team could share meals. Most importantly, the office included a small room designed as a quiet space for parents who needed to pump breast milk, take personal calls, or simply decompress. We also established a policy allowing employees to bring children to work when necessary, understanding that emergencies and childcare gaps were part of life. Lisa Rodriguez joined the team in January, bringing expertise in human-centered design that transformed how we approached software development. Her background included consulting work with Kaiser Permanente and Virginia Mason, giving her deep insight into how healthcare providers actually used technology. Most medical software is designed by engineers for engineers, she explained during her first team meeting. We need to design for exhausted residents working 36-hour shifts, experienced nurses managing multiple patients simultaneously, and specialists who see dozens of patients daily. The interface needs to be intuitive even when users are operating under extreme stress. James Thompson completed our core team in February. His experience with large-scale healthcare databases was crucial for the Morrison project, which involved migrating millions of patient records while maintaining complete data integrity and regulatory compliance. James also brought a methodical approach to project management that helped us establish processes for handling multiple client engagements simultaneously. The Morrison healthcare implementation began in earnest in March. Unlike the massive project teams that large consultancies typically deployed, we used a lean approach, 4 full-time developers working closely with Morrison's clinical staff to ensure each system component met real-world requirements. The development process was iterative, with weekly demos and constant feedback from end users. Dr. Hawkins became our strongest advocate within Morrison's organization. She attended every demo session, providing detailed feedback on interface designs and workflow logic. Her input proved invaluable, often identifying potential problems that could have caused major issues during system deployment. This is the first time a technology vendor has actually listened to clinical concerns, she told Jennifer Walsh during one of our progress meetings. Usually we're told to adapt our workflows to match the software's limitations. The collaborative approach created unexpected benefits. Morrison's nursing staff began suggesting improvements that went beyond our original scope, innovations that could benefit other healthcare organizations. With their permission, we incorporated these enhancements into our standard platform, creating intellectual property that differentiated health tech solutions from larger competitors. Meanwhile, Henderson and Associates was struggling with the fallout from losing Morrison Healthcare. Richard Henderson had been forced to lay off 12 employees, including several senior developers who'd been with the company for years. Industry publications began questioning the firm's ability to retain major clients, and their stock price, they'd gone public 2 years earlier, dropped 15% in the quarter following Morrison's departure. More damaging was the reputation impact. Healthcare organizations throughout the region learned that Morrison had terminated their contract due to implementation failures, and several other Henderson and Associates clients began reviewing their own relationships with the firm. The healthcare IT community was relatively small, and word traveled quickly about vendor performance issues. In April, Patricia Williams called again, this time with a different tone than her previous outreach. David, I'll be direct. We're facing some challenges in the healthcare vertical, and frankly we could use your expertise on a consulting basis. What kind of challenges? 3 of our healthcare clients have expressed concerns about their project. They're asking specifically about working with consultants who have your background and approach. I was changing Emma's diaper while talking, marveling at how she'd grown from the tiny infant I'd held in the hospital to an active toddler who seemed to learn new words daily. Sarah was in the kitchen preparing dinner, and I could hear her humming while she cooked. Patricia, I appreciate the call, but I'm not available for consulting work with Henderson and Associates. However, if your clients are interested in discussing their needs directly, they're welcome to contact Health Tech Solutions. That's not exactly what we had in mind, I understand, but that's the only arrangement that would work for me. Within 2 weeks, all 3 clients had reached out directly. Each had similar stories. Projects that had stalled, communication breakdowns with Henderson and Associates teams, and growing frustration with inflexible implementation approaches. 2 of the 3 ultimately became Health Tech Solutions clients, contracts worth a combined $1.2 million. The growth trajectory was becoming difficult to manage. We were receiving more inquiries than we could handle, and I faced the challenge of scaling the business while maintaining the quality and personal attention that had attracted clients in the first place. Traditional venture capital funding was available, but I was reluctant to cede control of the company culture I'd worked so hard to establish. Instead, I chose organic growth, reinvesting profits into hiring additional staff and expanding our service offerings. We brought on 2 more developers, a dedicated project manager, and a business development specialist who focused exclusively on healthcare organizations. The team grew to 12 people by summer, still small enough to maintain close collaboration, but large enough to handle multiple complex projects simultaneously. The Morrison Healthcare project reached a major milestone in June with the successful deployment of the new patient data system at their flagship hospital. The implementation went smoothly, with minimal downtime and positive feedback from clinical staff. Patient wait times decreased by an average of 8 minutes, and physicians reported spending 20% less time on administrative tasks. More importantly, the system's user interface received praise from nurses and doctors who had been skeptical of previous technology implementation. The design incorporated their workflow suggestions, creating a tool that felt natural rather than intrusive. Several medical residents requested additional training sessions, wanting to fully understand the system's capabilities. Hawkins sent a detailed letter to Morrison's board, documenting the implementation's success and recommending that Health Tech Solutions handle the rollout to their remaining facilities. The letter became a powerful marketing tool, providing third-party validation of our approach and result. What David's team has accomplished represents the future of healthcare technology consulting, she wrote. They've proven that smaller, specialized firms can deliver superior results by focusing on user experience and clinical workflow integration. The success at Morrison's flagship hospital accelerated our timeline for expanding to their other facilities. Instead of the 18-month rollout originally planned, Morrison's board approved a 12-month accelerated deployment. The compressed timeline meant additional hiring and careful project management, but it also meant completing the full contract 6 months ahead of schedule. By late summer, Health Tech Solutions had 15 employees and a client roster that included 7 healthcare organizations across 4 states. Our reputation for user-focused design and reliable implementation had spread throughout the industry, and we were receiving inquiries from hospitals as far away as Colorado and Arizona. The personal rewards were equally significant. I was able to attend every important moment in Emma's development, her first steps, her first words, her first day at daycare. Sarah and I shared parenting responsibilities equitably, and I never missed a pediatrician appointment or family dinner due to work obligations. Emma's vocabulary had exploded over the summer, and she'd begun showing interest in my work. She would sit on my lap during video calls, occasionally waving at clients on the screen. Several clients commented on how refreshing it was to work with a company where family integration was natural rather than apologetic. "It's obvious that you've built something special," Jennifer Walsh told me during one of our regular check-ins. "Your team is engaged, your timelines are realistic, and your solutions actually work in practice. That's rarer than it should be in this industry." The contrast with my former career was stark. At Henderson & Associates, I'd been a skilled employee, executing other people's visions within predetermined parameters. At Health Tech Solutions, I was building systems that reflected my own understanding of healthcare technology's potential. The work was more challenging but infinitely more rewarding. In September, we reached another significant milestone when Morrison Healthcare agreed to serve as a reference client for Health Tech Solutions. They provided detailed case studies documenting our implementation's impact on clinical workflows, patient satisfaction, and operational efficiency. These materials became the foundation for our marketing efforts, providing concrete evidence of our methodology's effectiveness. The reference relationship also led to speaking opportunities at healthcare technology conferences. I was invited to present at the Pacific Northwest Healthcare IT Summit, where I discussed the importance of user-centered design in medical software development. The presentation was well received, generating additional business inquiries and establishing Health Tech Solutions as a thought leader in the industry. More personally, the speaking engagement represented a form of professional recognition that felt different from corporate advancement. Instead of climbing someone else's ladder, I was building my own platform to share ideas and influence industry practices. The validation came from peers and clients rather than supervisors and annual review. The fourth quarter brought unexpected challenges as our rapid growth strained internal systems. We needed better project management tools, more sophisticated financial tracking, and clearer communication protocol. I hired Rebecca Martinez, an operations manager with experience scaling service businesses, to help establish processes that could support continued expansion. Rebecca's background included stints at both large consultancies and successful startups, giving her insight into the operational challenges we face. She immediately identified areas where we could improve efficiency without sacrificing the personal attention that differentiated us from larger competitors. "You've done an amazing job building the culture and client relationships," she told me during her first week. "Now we need to build the infrastructure that will let you maintain that culture as you grow." One of her first initiatives was implementing a comprehensive employee benefits package that reinforced our commitment to work-life balance. We established flexible scheduling policies, generous parental leave for all employees, and professional development stipends that encouraged continuous learning. The benefits package attracted attention from other companies in the Seattle tech scene, many of which were struggling with employee retention and burnout. Several business publications wrote articles about health tech solutions' approach to company culture, positioning us as an example of how small businesses could compete with large corporations for top talent. By December, exactly 2 years after leaving Henderson and Associates, Health Tech Solutions had grown to 18 employees and annual revenue approaching $4 million. The Morrison Healthcare contract had been completed successfully, with all 12 hospitals and 37 clinics now using our custom patient data system. Patient satisfaction scores had improved significantly, and Morrison's board had approved additional technology initiatives that would extend our relationship into the following year. The financial success was gratifying, but the personal satisfaction was even more meaningful. I was building something that aligned with my values while being present for my family's important moments. Emma had just turned 2, and she was beginning to understand that Daddy's work involved helping doctors and nurses take better care of sick people. On New Year's Eve, Sarah and I sat in our living room after putting Emma to bed, reflecting on the journey from my forced departure from Henderson and Associates to building a thriving consultancy. The house was quiet except for the occasional sound of Emma stirring in her crib upstairs. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Henderson and Associates had just let you take your parental leave?" Sarah asked. I considered the question carefully. Honestly, I think I would have returned to work, completed the Morrison project, and probably stayed there for years. I was comfortable, even if I wasn't entirely satisfied. Any regrets? None about leaving. But I do regret that it took losing my job to realize I could build something better. The conversation turned to plans for the coming year. Health Tech Solutions was at a crossroads. We could continue organic growth, maintaining our current culture and client focus, or we could pursue more aggressive expansion that might require outside investment and operational changes. I'd already decided on the path forward. We would grow strategically, maintaining our commitment to healthcare organizations that valued user-centered design and collaborative implementation approaches. The goal wasn't to become the largest healthcare IT consultancy, but rather to become the most respected one. As midnight approached, I thought about the phone call I'd received exactly 2 years earlier, the one that had ended my career at Henderson and Associates, but launched something far more meaningful. The experience had taught me that sometimes the worst professional moments can become catalysts for the best personal and professional growth. Emma's soft crying came through the baby monitor, and I went upstairs to comfort her. As I held her in the darkened nursery, I realized that the choice I'd made, prioritizing family over corporate expectations, had ultimately created opportunities I never could have imagined while sitting in Richard Henderson's corner office. The new year would bring new challenges, but it would also bring new opportunities to build a company that proved business success and family commitment weren't mutually exclusive. That lesson was worth more than any corporate promotion or corner office could ever be. The call came on a Tuesday morning in February, 3 years after I'd started Health Tech Solutions. I was reviewing architectural diagrams for Oregon Health Network's new telemedicine platform when my phone displayed a number I hadn't seen in months. Henderson and Associates main. The irony wasn't lost on me that they were calling while I worked on a project that represented exactly the kind of innovation they'd once dismissed as too niche for serious consideration. "David, this is Richard Henderson. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." Through my home office window, I could see Emma playing in our backyard sandbox, carefully constructing what she called hospitals for her stuffed animal. At 3 years old, she'd developed an understanding that Daddy's work involved helping real hospitals, and she'd begun incorporating medical themes into her imaginative play. "Not at all, Mr. Henderson. What can I do for you?" His tone was different from our previous conversations, less authoritative, more conciliatory. "I'll get straight to the point. Henderson and Associates is facing some significant challenges, and I believe you might be interested in discussing a potential acquisition opportunity." The words hung in the air like a challenge. 3 years earlier, I'd been considered dispensable, someone whose commitment to family made me unsuitable for important projects. Now, the same company was suggesting they wanted to acquire the business I'd built from nothing. "I'm listening. Our healthcare vertical has struggled since the Morrison situation. We've lost 4 major clients in the past 18 months, and frankly, the market has shifted toward the kind of specialized user-focused approach that you've pioneered." I set down my pen and leaned back in my chair. Emma had moved from the sandbox to her swing set, pumping her legs with determination while singing a song she'd learned at preschool. The scene epitomized everything I'd fought to preserve: the ability to witness these small moments while building something meaningful professionally. "What kind of acquisition are you envisioning?" "A merger, really. Henderson and Associates would acquire Health Tech Solutions, but you'd become our chief technology officer with full autonomy over healthcare implementation. Your team would remain intact, and you'd have the resources of a larger organization while maintaining your current approach." The offer was generous: CTO salary, equity participation, and operational independence. Under different circumstances, it might have been attractive. But circumstances weren't different. They were exactly what they'd always been. I was a father who refused to sacrifice family time for corporate advancement, and Henderson and Associates remained an organization that viewed such priorities as character flaws. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested in rejoining Henderson and Associates in any capacity. David, I understand there's history between us, but this would be different. You'd have complete control over your division, and we're prepared to offer very competitive terms." "Mr. Henderson, with respect, the issue was never about control or compensation. It was about fundamental values regarding work-life balance and employee treatment. Those differences haven't changed." There was a long pause before he responded. "The business environment has evolved significantly. We're much more flexible about family commitments now." "I'm glad to hear that, but Health Tech Solutions is exactly where I want to be." After ending the call, I sat quietly for several minutes, processing the conversation's implication. Henderson and Associates' acquisition offer represented validation that our approach was not only viable but superior to traditional consulting models. More importantly, it confirmed that the choice I'd made 3 years earlier, prioritizing family over corporate expectations, had led to outcomes that exceeded anything I could have achieved by staying. Emma's laughter drew my attention back to the window. She'd convinced our neighbor's cat to sit near her swing, and she was explaining to the patient animal how swings worked. The scene reminded me why I'd rejected Henderson's offer without hesitation. These moments were irreplaceable, and no amount of corporate success could compensate for missing them. The Oregon Health Network project represented a new frontier for health tech solutions. Unlike our previous hospital system implementations, this initiative involved creating a comprehensive telemedicine platform that would connect rural clinics with specialists in urban medical centers. The technical challenges were significant, but the potential impact on patient care was extraordinary. Dr. Amanda Foster, Oregon Health Network's Chief Medical Officer, had approached us after attending my presentation at the Northwest Healthcare Innovation Conference. Her organization served over 200,000 patients across Oregon's rural communities, many of whom had limited access to specialized medical care. The telemedicine platform would enable real-time consultations between rural physicians and specialists in Portland, Eugene, and Bend. Distance shouldn't determine the quality of healthcare someone receives, Dr. Foster had explained during our initial meeting, but current telemedicine solutions are either too expensive, too complicated, or too unreliable for widespread deployment in rural settings. The project required innovations beyond traditional healthcare. We needed to design systems that functioned effectively with limited internet bandwidth, interfaces that worked for physicians with varying levels of technology comfort, and security protocols that protected patient information during remote consultation. Lisa Rodriguez led the user experience design, spending weeks in rural Oregon clinics, observing how physicians currently handled complex cases. Her research revealed that many rural doctors were extremely skilled diagnosticians, who simply lacked access to specialized equipment and consultation opportunities available in larger medical centers. These physicians aren't looking for technology to replace their judgment, Lisa reported during one of our design meetings. They want tools that enhance their ability to provide comprehensive care without requiring patients to travel hundreds of miles for specialist consultation. The technical architecture required creative solutions to bandwidth limitations common in rural areas. James Thompson designed a system that optimized video quality dynamically based on available connection speed, ensuring that consultations could proceed even when internet performance was suboptimal. The platform also included offline capabilities, allowing rural physicians to prepare consultation materials when connectivity was unavailable. Marcus Chen focused on integration challenges, ensuring that the telemedicine platform worked seamlessly with existing electronic health record systems used by participating clinics. The integration was crucial for adoption. Physicians needed to access patient histories, diagnostic images, and test results without switching between multiple applications during consultations. The development process involved extensive testing in real clinical environments. Rather than relying on simulated scenarios, we arranged pilot programs at 3 rural clinics, allowing physicians to use the platform for actual patient consultations while we monitored performance and gathered feedback. Sarah Mitchell, a family physician in rural Baker County, became one of our most valuable collaborators during the pilot phase. Her clinic served a community of 8,000 people spread across 3,000 square miles, making specialist access particularly challenging for her patients. "I've been practicing rural medicine for 15 years, she told our development team during a feedback session. This is the first telemedicine system that actually feels designed for how we work rather than how technologists think we should work." Her endorsement carried significant weight within Oregon's rural medical community. Dr. Mitchell had a reputation for being selective about new technologies, adopting only solutions that demonstrably improved patient care without creating additional administrative burden. The pilot program revealed unexpected benefits beyond basic specialist consultations. Rural physicians began using the platform for continuing education, attending virtual grand rounds at teaching hospitals, and collaborating on research projects with academic medical centers. The technology was creating professional development opportunities that had been impossible to access from remote locations. Foster documented these additional benefits in her reports to Oregon Health Network's board, noting that the platform was not only improving patient care but also helping retain physicians in rural communities by reducing professional isolation. "Rural physician burnout is a serious problem," she explained. "When doctors feel disconnected from medical advancement and peer collaboration, they often relocate to urban areas. This platform helps rural physicians maintain connections with the broader medical community." The success of Oregon Health Network's pilot program attracted attention from healthcare organizations across the western United States. Montana Rural Health Association inquired about adapting the platform for their network of frontier hospitals. Colorado Mountain Medical Group requested a demonstration for their board of directors. Wyoming Primary Care Consortium asked about licensing opportunity. Each inquiry represented potential revenue, but more importantly, they represented opportunities to expand healthcare access for underserved populations. Rural healthcare had always been personal for me. My grandmother had lived in a small farming community where the nearest cardiologist was 3 hours away. She'd suffered a heart attack while visiting specialists were unavailable, an outcome that might have been different with real-time consultation capabilities. The business implications of our telemedicine success were significant. Healthcare technology publications began featuring health tech solutions as an innovator in rural medicine applications. Venture capital firms that specialized in healthcare investments started reaching out, suggesting that our platform could scale nationally with proper funding. These conversations forced me to confront questions about health tech solutions' future direction. Rapid scaling would require significant capital investment. potentially changing the company culture I'd worked to establish. Venture funding typically came with growth expectations that might conflict with our commitment to thoughtful, user-centered development approaches. Rebecca Martinez organized a series of strategic planning sessions to evaluate our options. The management team, now expanded to include department heads for development, design, business development, and operations, spent considerable time discussing how to balance growth opportunities with core values. We have three basic paths, Rebecca summarized during one of these sessions: organic growth, maintaining current culture and pace; venture-funded scaling with accelerated expansion, or strategic partnerships that provide resources without equity dilution. The team's input was invaluable. Marcus advocated for continued organic growth, arguing that our competitive advantage came from maintaining close client relationships that would be difficult to preserve at a larger scale. Lisa supported strategic partnerships, suggesting that collaborating with established healthcare organizations could expand our reach while preserving design quality. James proposed a hybrid approach, accepting limited venture funding specifically for telemedicine platform development, while maintaining organic growth for traditional consulting services. His suggestion would allow us to scale our most innovative work while preserving the client relationships that had built our reputation. The decision ultimately came down to personal priorities and long-term vision. I spent several evenings discussing options with Sarah, weighing professional opportunities against family considerations. Emma was thriving in her current environment, and we'd built a life in Seattle that balanced career advancement with family time effectively. What do you want Health Tech Solutions to become? Sarah asked during one of these conversations. A large consulting firm that competes with Henderson and Associates, or something entirely different? Her question crystallized my thinking. Health Tech Solutions had succeeded precisely because it wasn't trying to replicate traditional consulting models. Our strength came from being small enough to maintain personal relationships, while being innovative enough to solve problems that larger firms couldn't address effectively. I decided on a modified version of James's hybrid approach. We would seek strategic partnerships with rural healthcare organizations that could provide implementation support and local Rather than venture capital, we would pursue grants from federal agencies and healthcare foundations that supported rural medicine initiatives. The grant funding approach aligned with our mission while providing resources for platform development. The Rural Health Research Gateway had recently announced a $2.3 million grant program for telemedicine innovations, specifically designed for frontier communities. The application process was competitive, but our Oregon Health Network results provided compelling evidence of our platform's effectiveness. Writing the grant proposal required documenting not just technical capabilities, but also measurable impacts on patient outcomes and healthcare access. Foster provided detailed statistics showing that specialist consultation wait times had decreased from an average of 6 weeks to less than 24 hours for participating clinics. Patient satisfaction scores had improved significantly, and several rural physicians reported increased job satisfaction due to expanded consultation capabilities. The proposal process also forced us to articulate our long-term vision for rural healthcare technology. Beyond telemedicine consultations, we envisioned platforms that could support remote diagnostic capabilities, continuing education for rural healthcare providers, and collaborative research initiatives between rural clinics and academic medical centers. In May, we received notification that our grant application had been approved for full funding. The $2.3 million award would support 3 years of platform development and deployment across 12 Western states. More importantly, the grant included provisions for revenue sharing from platform licensing, creating sustainable funding for continued development beyond the initial grant period. The grant announcement generated significant media attention, positioning Health Tech Solutions as a leader in rural healthcare innovation. Healthcare Business Today featured us in a cover story about technology companies addressing healthcare equity. Modern Healthcare included our platform in their annual list of most promising healthcare innovations. The recognition brought unexpected opportunities. Harvard Medical School's Center for Primary Care invited me to serve on their Rural Health Technology Advisory Board. The National Rural Health Association asked me to keynote their annual conference,
Stanford University's Graduate School of Business requested a case study interview about building technology companies with social impact missions. These opportunities represented professional recognition that felt different from corporate advancement. Instead of climbing hierarchies within existing organizations, I was building expertise and influence within the healthcare technology community. The validation came from peers who shared similar missions rather than supervisors evaluating performance against predetermined metrics. Emma had started preschool in September, giving me more focused work time while still maintaining the flexible schedule that had always been important to our family. She'd developed friendships with classmates and seemed to thrive in the structured learning environment. More importantly, I was able to volunteer for field trips and attend parent-teacher conferences without scheduling conflicts. The contrast with my Henderson and Associates experience remained stark. Former colleagues who'd stayed with the company reported increasing pressure to demonstrate dedication through long hours and weekend availability. Several had reached out privately, asking about opportunities at Health Tech Solutions or similar companies that prioritized work-life balance. One conversation particularly stood out. Janet Morrison, my former supervisor, called in late October to congratulate me on the grant award. During our conversation, she mentioned that Henderson and Associates was still struggling to rebuild their healthcare client base. "I have to ask," she said near the end of our call, "do you think things would have been different if we'd handled your parental leave situation differently?" Honestly, Janet, I think that situation revealed fundamental differences in values that would have surfaced eventually. The parental leave issue was just the catalyst. Richard has mentioned several times that losing you was one of his biggest professional regrets. I appreciate that, but it's worked out well for everyone involved. I'm building something that aligns with my values, and Henderson and Associates has had to develop better policies for supporting working parents. After ending the call, I realized that the conversation represented a form of closure I hadn't expected. The personal vindication was satisfying, but more importantly, the professional trajectory I'd chosen was creating opportunities to influence healthcare technology in ways that would have been impossible within traditional corporate structure. The year ended with Health Tech Solutions employing 22 people across development, design, implementation, and business operations. Annual revenue had grown to $6.8 million, with the telemedicine platform accounting for approximately 30% of total business. More significantly, our client satisfaction scores remained consistently high, and employee turnover was virtually non-existent.
The company culture had evolved, but maintained its core commitments to work-life balance and meaningful projects. New employees were attracted not just by competitive compensation, but by the opportunity to work on healthcare technology that demonstrably improved patient outcomes. Several team members had turned down higher-paying offers from larger companies, citing Health Tech Solutions' mission and culture as determining factors in their decisions. On New Year's Eve, I sat in my home office reviewing the year's accomplishments while Emma played quietly with her toys nearby. The Oregon Health Network platform was serving over 50 rural clinics across 6 states. The federal grant would support expansion to reach an additional 200 communities over the next 3 years. Industry recognition had positioned Health Tech Solutions as a thought leader in healthcare technology innovation. But the personal measures of success felt equally important. I'd attended every parent-teacher conference, every preschool performance, and every pediatrician appointment. Sarah and I had maintained our partnership approach to parenting while both pursuing meaningful careers. Emma was developing into a confident, curious child who understood that work could be fulfilling without consuming all available time and energy. The phone rang just before midnight. Marcus calling to share news that one of our rural clinic partners had just successfully completed their first emergency consultation using our platform. A small-town physician had been able to consult with a cardiologist in real time during a suspected heart attack, potentially saving a patient's life. "This is why we do this work," Marcus said. "Technology that actually matters." As I hung up the phone, I reflected on the journey from forced unemployment to building a company that was changing healthcare delivery for underserved population. The path had been uncertain and occasionally difficult, but it had led to outcomes that exceeded anything I could have imagined, while sitting in corporate conference rooms discussing quarterly targets and billable hour requirements. Emma fell asleep on the couch beside me as 2025 began, and I carried her upstairs to her bedroom. Looking at her peaceful face, I realized that the choice I'd made 3 years earlier, prioritizing family over corporate expectations, had created not just personal fulfillment, but professional opportunities that were changing lives across rural America. The coming year would bring new challenges and opportunities, but it would also bring continued proof that business success and family commitment could not only coexist but could actually enhance each other in ways that created value far beyond financial metrics. The invitation arrived on a gray January morning, 4 years after I'd walked out of Henderson and Associates, carrying a cardboard box and an uncertain future. The return address made me pause. Pacific Northwest Healthcare Excellence Awards Committee. Inside was a formal request for Health Tech Solutions to accept the Innovation in Rural Healthcare Technology Award at their annual gala in March. Emma, now 4 years old, was eating breakfast at the kitchen table, carefully arranging her cereal pieces by color, while explaining to her stuffed dinosaur why vegetables were important for growing strong. Sarah read the invitation over my shoulder, smiling at the recognition, but also noting the date conflicted with Emma's first school play. "We'll make it work," she said, understanding the significance of the award. Emma's been practicing her lines for weeks, and she'd be devastated if both parents missed her debut as tree number 3. The award represented more than professional recognition. It validated our approach to healthcare technology and rural medicine access. But the timing reminded me that success meant nothing if it came at the expense of family moments that could never be recaptured. Over the past year, Health Tech Solutions had expanded beyond my most optimistic projection. Our telemedicine platform now served 847 rural clinics across 14 states, facilitating over 15,000 specialist consultations annually. The federal grant had enabled partnerships with medical schools, creating rotation programs that exposed urban-trained physicians to rural healthcare challenges, while providing technology support for underserved communities. Rodriguez from the University of Washington Medical School had become one of our strongest academic partners, integrating our platform into their rural medicine curriculum. Medical students could observe consultations between rural physicians and specialists, learning both clinical skills and technology applications in real-world settings. "Your platform has transformed how we teach rural medicine," she told me during a quarterly review meeting. "Students understand the isolation challenges rural physicians face, but they also see how technology can create connections that improve patient outcomes without requiring physicians to abandon their community." The educational applications had attracted attention from international healthcare organizations. The World Health Organization invited us to adapt our platform for use in developing countries, where specialist access challenges mirrored those in rural America. A pilot program in Ghana was showing promising results, connecting rural clinics with specialists in Accra and Kumasi. Meanwhile, Henderson and Associates continued struggling with their healthcare vertical. Industry publications reported that they'd lost 6 more major clients in the past year, including Pacific Medical Group, the client whose project had originally established my reputation in healthcare. The company had been forced to close their Portland office and consolidate operations in Seattle. Richard Henderson announced his retirement in February, citing changing market dynamics and new competitive pressures as factors in his decision. The announcement included mention of potential strategic partnerships or acquisition opportunities, language that suggested the company was actively seeking buyers. Several former Henderson and Associates employees had joined Health Tech Solutions over the years, bringing valuable experience and institutional knowledge. Their insights helped us avoid common pitfalls in client relationships and project management. More importantly, they brought diverse perspectives that strengthened our team's problem-solving capabilities. Tom Bradley, who'd been Henderson's senior project manager before joining us, often reflected on the cultural differences between the organization. At Henderson and Associates, success was measured by billable hours and profit margins, he observed during one of our monthly team meetings. Here, success is measured by patient outcomes and client satisfaction. The financial results follow naturally when you focus on doing meaningful work well. The team had grown to 35 employees, large enough to handle complex projects while small enough to maintain personal relationships with clients. We'd established offices in Portland and Denver to better serve our expanding client base, but maintained our headquarters in Seattle where the company culture had originated. The Seattle office had evolved significantly from our original warehouse space. We'd moved to a custom-designed facility in South Lake Union, complete with collaboration spaces, quiet zones for focused work, and family-friendly areas where employees could bring children when necessary. The space reflected our values: professional but welcoming, innovative but comfortable. Most importantly, the office included a dedicated childcare room staffed by licensed providers during peak collaboration periods. The amenity had proven invaluable for working parents, eliminating the stress of finding backup childcare during important meetings or project deadlines. Emma loved visiting the office, particularly the childcare room where she'd befriended children of other employees. She'd developed her own understanding of what Daddy's company did, explaining to strangers that we help doctors in small towns talk to special doctors in big cities, so sick people can get better faster. Her description was remarkably accurate and infinitely more compelling than any corporate mission statement I could have crafted. The Healthcare Excellence Awards Gala was held at the Seattle Convention Center, attended by over 500 healthcare professionals from across the Pacific Northwest. As I prepared my acceptance remarks, I thought about the journey that had led to this recognition, from unemployment and uncertainty to building something that was measurably improving healthcare access for vulnerable populations. Sarah and I had arranged for Emma's grandmother to attend her school play, ensuring she'd have family support for her theatrical debut. We'd also arranged to live stream the performance, so we could watch from the awards ceremony, technology enabling us to be present for both important moments. During the ceremony, as my name was announced for the Innovation Award, I walked to the podium thinking about the people who'd made this recognition possible: the rural physicians who'd trusted us with their patients' care, the development team who'd prioritized user experience over technical complexity, the clients who'd chosen a small company over established competitors. But mostly I thought about Emma, who'd inspired the choice that set everything in motion. 4 years ago, I was fired from my job for wanting to take parental leave. I began my acceptance remarks. At the time, it felt like a career-ending disaster. Tonight, I realize it was actually the beginning of the most meaningful work of my professional life. The audience response was immediate and enthusiastic. Many healthcare professionals had faced similar challenges, balancing career advancement with family responsibilities. My story resonated because it represented possibilities rather than limitations. This award doesn't belong to me alone. It belongs to every rural physician who trusted our technology with their patients' care. It belongs to every specialist who donated time for remote consultations. It belongs to every healthcare administrator who prioritized patient outcomes over cost reduction. I paused, looking out at the audience filled with people dedicated to improving healthcare delivery. But mostly this award belongs to my daughter Emma, who taught me that being present for family doesn't limit professional achievement. It inspires us to build something worth building. The standing ovation lasted nearly 2 minutes. Afterward, dozens of people approached with their own stories about work-life balance challenges, career transitions, and building companies with social impact missions. Many were considering similar entrepreneurial paths, inspired by proof that alternative approaches could succeed. Dr. Foster from Oregon Health Network introduced me to several foundation executives interested in funding healthcare technology initiatives. A representative from the Gates Foundation discussed potential collaboration on global health projects. The CEO of a major health insurance company asked about licensing our platform for their provider network. Each conversation represented potential opportunities, but also potential complications. Rapid scaling could compromise the quality and personal attention that had built our reputation. Commercial partnerships might conflict with our mission to serve underserved populations. Growth decisions required careful consideration of long-term impact on company culture and client relationships. The drive home from the awards ceremony provided time to process the evening's event. Sarah had recorded Emma's school play on her phone, and we watched it together in the hotel parking lot before heading home. Emma's performance as tree number 3 was enthusiastic if not technically perfect, and her obvious joy was infectious. She was looking for us in the audience, Sarah observed, pointing out moments when Emma scanned the crowd hopefully. We'll be there for the next one, I promised, meaning it completely. The following weeks brought a surge of new business inquiries generated by the awards ceremony publicity. Healthcare organizations across the country wanted to discuss telemedicine implementations. Medical schools asked about educational partnerships. Technology companies proposed joint ventures for platform development. Managing the opportunities required expanding our business development capabilities. We hired Catherine Moore, a former healthcare consultant with experience evaluating strategic partnerships. Her background included stints at Mayo Clinic and Kaiser Permanente, providing insight into how large healthcare organizations approached technology decisions. Catherine's first recommendation was establishing clear criteria for client selection and partnership evaluation. Not every opportunity aligned with our mission or capabilities, and pursuing inappropriate projects could damage our reputation and overextend our resources. You've built something special, she told the management team during her first strategy session. The challenge now is scaling it without losing what makes it special. Her advice proved prescient when a major technology company approached us about acquiring our telemedicine platform for integration into their healthcare portfolio. The offer was substantial, $45 million for the platform and associated intellectual property, plus employment contracts for key development staff. The acquisition would have provided immediate financial security and access to resources for global platform deployment, but it would also have meant ceding control over product development and client relationships. The acquiring company's track record suggested they prioritized market penetration over user experience, potentially compromising the platform's effectiveness for rural healthcare applications. After extensive team discussions and family conversations, I declined the acquisition offer. The decision wasn't entirely popular. Several team members had been excited about the financial windfall and global reach possibility, but the majority agreed that maintaining independence was crucial for preserving our mission and culture. Instead, we pursued a different path. Catherine negotiated strategic partnerships with 3 major healthcare organizations that provided market access and implementation support while preserving our autonomy over product development. The partnerships enabled us to expand into new regions without sacrificing quality or mission alignment. The partnership approach proved successful beyond our expectations. Within 6 months, our platform was serving over 1,200 rural clinics across 22 states. International deployments had expanded to include projects in Mexico, Ghana, and the Philippines. Annual revenue reached $12.8 million, with projected growth to $18 million the following year. But the metrics that mattered most were patient outcomes and provider satisfaction. Rural physicians reported increased confidence in managing complex cases. Specialist consultations had reduced unnecessary patient transfers by 37%. Patient satisfaction scores consistently exceeded 90% across all participating clinics. Dr. Mitchell from Baker County, our original pilot partner, had become one of our most effective advocates within the rural medicine community. Her clinic now served as a demonstration site for other rural physicians considering telemedicine adoption. This platform hasn't just improved my ability to treat patients, she told a group of rural physicians during a training session. It renewed my enthusiasm for practicing medicine in a small community. I feel connected to medical advancement instead of isolated from. Her endorsement carried particular weight because she'd initially been skeptical of telemedicine technology. Her conversion from skeptic to advocate provided powerful testimony about our platform's practical benefits. The success had created unexpected opportunities for policy influence. I was invited to testify before a congressional subcommittee examining rural healthcare access challenges. The testimony focused on how technology could address provider shortages and geographic barriers without requiring massive infrastructure investment. Rural healthcare challenges require innovative solutions that recognize the unique constraints and advantages of small communities, I told the subcommittee. Technology should enhance rural physicians' capabilities, rather than replace human judgment and local relationships. The testimony generated bipartisan interest in federal policies, supporting rural telemedicine initiatives. Several representatives followed up with requests for detailed policy recommendations, creating opportunities to influence healthcare technology regulations at the national level. Meanwhile, Emma had started kindergarten, marking another milestone in our family's journey. She'd adapted well to the structured school environment while maintaining her curiosity and enthusiasm for learning. Her teacher noted that Emma often incorporated medical themes into her creative projects, suggesting that exposure to healthcare technology had influenced her interest. She built a clinic out of blocks during free play yesterday, her teacher reported during our first parent conference. She explained to the other children how doctors in small towns could talk to special doctors using computers. It was remarkably sophisticated for a 5-year-old. Emma's understanding of my work had evolved along with the company's growth. She could explain telemedicine concepts to adults with impressive accuracy, and she'd begun asking thoughtful questions about why some people lived far from hospitals and how technology could help solve problems. Her questions often provided fresh perspectives on challenges we faced in platform development. Children's natural curiosity sometimes revealed assumptions or complexities that adult expertise had overlooked. As 2026 began, Health Tech Solutions employed 48 people across 4 offices, serving over 1,500 healthcare facilities in 31 states and 7 countries. The company had become profitable enough to establish the Health Tech Foundation, a nonprofit organization focused on providing technology access to underserved communities that couldn't afford commercial implementation. The foundation's first project involved deploying our platform to Native American health services, addressing healthcare access challenges in tribal communities. The project was personally meaningful because it directly addressed health equity issues that had motivated my initial interest in healthcare technology. Looking back on the journey from forced unemployment to building a company that was changing healthcare delivery patterns, I realized that the experience had taught me profound lessons about success, family, and professional fulfillment. The most important lesson was that choosing family over corporate expectations hadn't limited my career. It had liberated me to build something more meaningful than anything I could have achieved within traditional organizational structure. The constraints had forced creativity and innovation that wouldn't have emerged in more comfortable circumstances. Emma would grow up knowing that her father had prioritized being present for her childhood, while building something that improved other people's lives. That knowledge would shape her understanding of what work could be, not just a source of income or status, but an opportunity to contribute meaningfully to solving problems that matter. On a quiet Sunday evening in February, as Emma played with her medical kit while I reviewed platform usage statistics, I received a text message from Marcus. Emergency consultation just saved another life in rural Montana. This is why we do this work. His message captured everything I'd hoped to achieve when I first imagined Health Tech Solutions. We'd built technology that was literally saving lives while creating a company culture that supported employees' family commitments and personal growth. The phone call that had ended my career at Henderson and Associates 4 years earlier had seemed like a devastating setback at the time, but it had actually been the catalyst for building something far more valuable than any corporate position could have provided. Sometimes the worst professional moments become the foundation for the best personal and professional growth. The key is having the courage to choose values over convenience, even when the path forward is uncertain. As I tucked Emma into bed that night, she asked her usual question, "Daddy, did you help sick people get better today?" "Yes, Emma. We helped doctors in small towns take better care of their patients." "Good," she said with the satisfied confidence of a 5-year-old who understood that her father's work mattered. "Tomorrow we can help more people." Her simple wisdom captured the essence of everything we'd built. Tomorrow we would indeed help more people, and we'd do it while being present for the family moments that made all the hard work worthwhile. The journey from unemployment to industry recognition had taught me that true success isn't measured by corporate titles or salary figures. It's measured by the positive impact you create while living according to your values and being present for the people who matter most. 4 years after being fired for wanting to take parental leave, I was running a company that had not only taken Henderson and Associates' biggest client, but had fundamentally changed how rural healthcare was delivered across multiple continents.
More importantly, I'd done it while being the father I'd wanted to be from the beginning. That's a kind of success worth fighting for. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest upload.